Thank you. Let me bring my scarf with me, because you always got, I'm gonna be like Prince. You gotta have something with you. Thank you so much, Mr. Flamer. We're eventually gonna give you an honorary degree, because that's what we're gonna do is give you, see, and unlike you, I'm gonna follow instruction, because Roosevelt said I should use the mic. Right, Roosevelt? Right, Roosevelt? Okay, so we're on now. Is it too loud? No? Okay, good. Thank you. So, well, I am really blessed and honored to be here with you all. And before I even get started, it's funny you had the drummers, right? So every time I travel, I know I literally only came 2 hours away, but whatever. But this scarf actually came from South Africa when I went to go visit. And it's just, I mean, for me, I remember I lost, I think, like in Arizona, and I had them find it and mail it back to me. But this scarf really is a good representation of our community, our Black community, and the drumming, as you can see, is part of that as well. And just the way that we're vibrant people. And so I feel like it's always a reminder, no matter where I am, that I'm always tethered to my people. And I'm just so honored to be here. So I am not gonna be here with you all. Is this working? This ain't working. Don't worry about it. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Flamer, soon to be doctor, honorary degree somewhere at J.C. Smith. Where's the J.C. Smith? Y'all should give him a degree. And I should say, y'all didn't know this, but my father actually taught here. Like, I never met him, really, it's been like decades, but he actually was an economics professor here. So when I was driving up here, it literally just hit my head like, oh yeah, he was here. And maybe in this building, I don't know. So in some ways, even if we're not speaking, because, Black people got issues, that I still stand on the shoulders of his family, my mom's family, and just so many others as well. Are you gonna click it for me? Oh, thank you, Ms. P. So I'm here, I'm gonna talk to you briefly about the Black Child National Agenda, but I really wanna make sure to connect it to the amazing work y'all are doing around the preschool suspension expulsion issue. Because as Dr. Austin said, and obviously the amazing work that Dr. Govind Hunt is doing here, it is one of our biggest issues. First of all, we all knew about it before the federal government said, oh, by the way, y'all are being thrown out. We knew about it all the way. And so I just want to quickly, do I have that? I'm going to quickly, No, let me see. Is this my PowerPoint? It's okay, we can find it. There's a PowerPoint on the desktop. Yeah. So what I encourage you all, if you haven't read the agenda, I really do encourage you to read it. So it's a partnership between the National Black Child Development Institute, and that was on purpose. So here I came back to UNC in October 2020 to launch the Equity Research Action Coalition. And the whole purpose of the coalition, and I call it research because I'm a researcher by training, but I felt like it's important that I don't take sort of what I consider sort of at least my talent in being a researcher and really make sure to activate it for my people. And so the whole idea of the coalition is to co-construct research that is African-centered, that's culture responsive, with practitioners, with advocates like Dr. Govind Hunt, with the National Black Child Development Institute, with policymakers. But most importantly, we try to sort of cross the bridge of research, practice, and policy with an anti-racist cultural wealth framework. So to me, I'm gonna feel like that's like my brain, is that we have to recognize the racism is literally the air we breathe, right? But however, there's also a level of cultural assets that we have, like the music, the fact that we can literally be crying and making jokes and making music and making art. Like that level of ability to sort of weave your ancestry, to deal with the oppression and trauma in ways that nobody could ever figure out. That is a cultural asset that we never talk about. Like how many groups of people were dragged from their motherland, stripped of your language, stripped of your family, and you still have the ability to smile, to laugh, to wake up every day, to crack mama jokes, to make a whole new song, make new words like blang, read. Like we would make a whole new dictionary, right? Like that's so for me, we have to recognize that even through the oppression, the dehumanization, we have a lot of assets that we literally breathe, and we have to remember that in many ways. So the Black Child Agenda, did you find it? Okay, go ahead. Okay, thank you, Ms. P. So you can keep going. So the Black Child Agenda is really trying to sort of remind us of who we are, but also to remind America that you did promise us something. Remember that 40 acres and a mule? So when you read the agenda, there's on one of the last pages, after we talk about reparations, we literally put the order. There was a whole 40 acres. Now they did give some people 40 acres and a mule, but then they took it back. So that's what we say, delivering on the promise. Like, right, that is what we have to really expect in the agenda, saying you need to deliver on a promise. And it's just the blueprint. So this is just the beginning. This is not saying, oh, these are all the policies. These are all the things you have to do. But this is just a start. And I do want to just point out that the other partners, obviously NBCDI being one of the key and most critical partner because they are the national organization for Black children, 50 plus years organization. Amen to that. Yes. And obviously has 24 affiliates, including obviously one of the amazing ones here in Charlotte. I'm glad I'm not that far away. And I know Dr. Govind Hunt. So that was important that for me, I felt like I had to be tethered to my people, and that was critical. And then points of access is sort of they do birth to age sort of work, really focused on neurological development, culture, responsive practices. And so really they also brought the human rights perspective. See, that's something important we have to remember is that, you know what, people are like, oh my God, the abortion thing is gonna happen. Oh my God, civil rights. But the reality is, and that's what the points of access president, Shara Reeves, mentioned. She said, first of all, we deserve human rights. Civil rights is kind of what we do here, but human rights is what we deserve because we are human. And that's a global thing. We don't have to go begging for civil rights. We literally deserve civil rights, but really human rights. And that's really the idea of the agenda is that we are saying, look, we're not begging for your $2. We're not begging for 40 acres and a mule. We're literally deserving of human rights because we are human first and foremost. And so that's something the agenda is trying to really press, and we'll continue to press that. Next slide, please. And I won't say why national agenda other than there is this narrative about Blackness. And I think, you know, Mr. Flamer, your point about the drummers, right, is that there's something about people just sometimes don't want to be Black. I know. People don't want to be Black. And that's because of the narrative. Thank you so much, Ms. P. There's a narrative about Blackness that we have allowed to seep in, right? And it's not just white people who say something about Black people, but Black people, right? We are still going through a level of trauma, like really intergenerational. We talk about Native people who still deal with the trauma of their land being stolen, children being taken away. But Black people, we are still doing a level of trauma that we have not fully come out of. And we need to understand that. So I think part of it is that we have to recognize that there's a level of where America, and it's not our fault per se, that they've instilled in us that Blackness is not good enough. That's right. And so we have to just remember the Black agenda is like, there is so much to us beyond what you tell us. And so the Black agenda is for us and by us. And that's something that's really, really important for the agenda. You can go ahead and go through. So you can go through so the report kind of just outlays what we want. It outlays the assets of families and children that come through. It then outlays, you can keep clicking down, thank you. Okay, then we get to the 3Ps framework, and then it outlines the 3Ps. So this is to me probably the most important. So when I say the 3Ps, I don't mean your green peas and your rice and beans. So to me, the 10 policies are just what they are. They're 10. There could be 500. But what I'm arguing with the 3Ps are these things that we need to protect, promote, and preserve. And I'll talk a little bit what I mean by those three things. Because when I just step back, and you know, I'm a mother of two young Black kids. I have a 5-year-old who is about to graduate. Oh my goodness, he's not graduating, he's 5. He's gonna go back to the same exact classroom. And I have an 8-year-old who's finishing her 3rd grade. And so to your board chair or the elder who was not here, yes, so they're out there graduating or doing something. But I have 2 young Black children. And especially, I remember when I had, I'm a Black person, I take side roads. So when I had my daughter here in North Carolina over at Duke, and then we moved to Nebraska. Different conversation later. I went to University of Nebraska to be part of this new institute, whatever. And I had my son, but before I knew I was having a boy, I remember thinking I'm gonna have a girl. I'm one of 7 girls. I never thought I would ever birth a male person out of my stuff. So, but when they told me, literally, because I didn't know, I assumed I was having a girl. When they told me, oh, you have a boy, I literally remember I felt joy, but I also felt a level of anxiety. Like I can't describe it, right? And I was like, in my mind, I literally replayed some of my things. My husband said, like, oh my goodness, is he gonna make it till 12? Is he gonna make it through 18? Is he gonna make it to 30? Like I felt like now I have responsibility to ensure that this person is able to live and thrive and just enjoy life. And yes, I didn't have, I mean, my daughter created another level, but I felt like my son created a whole nother dimension of where I was like, wow, now I have a responsibility in ways that I've never had. And I had these feelings of like, oh my goodness, am I gonna be able to protect him from society? Right? It's not about protecting him from just, but for society and for him to be this joyful person. So for me, the Black agenda is a reminder that our children deserve our protection, and protection from trauma, protection from violence, protection from material hardships. Like they deserve for us to protect them on the deepest of ways. And for us, it's probably a little hard because we can't control when they see a Black boy in particular, but even a Black girl now. Let's not forget, Black girls are actually suspended compared to Latinas, white girls, and other girls of color. Black girls are actually suspended more than their girl counterparts. But Black boys they throw them out completely. But I want us to remember that we have to protect them from the level of sort of just dehumanization that happens. When you tell a 3-year-old, you know Joaquin, you know Jeremiah, you can go. Like think of a 3-year-old. He's 36-month-old. He's 40-month-old. And they literally say, whatever you're doing is so bad, we're gonna toss you. We literally have to protect them from that feeling of a sense of loss, of a sense of shame, of a sense of you are not wanted and you do not belong. I mean, kids at 3 barely know who they are, so they're still developing. But when they get the message of you are not wanted, you can't see your friends, that's a message that in many ways you can't ever forget. And that's why when you have exactly to Dr. Govan Hunt's and their work, that's why we actually have a preschool to prison pipeline. Because that message is the beginning that forms in your head and eventually it plays out. Not because that's what that kid wanted, but that's what we created in our system. So protection is the first of the P's. So of course, once we can protect them from like just, discrimination, racism, material hardships, next is we have to promote them. So, okay, so they stay in your classroom, they stay in the program. Now we know a lot of programs shouldn't be a program, shouldn't be a school. Let's all be facts about that. But we need to make sure that they're promoted, their health is promoted, right? We actually know that a lot of Black children are born preterm and low birth weight. My mother lost 4 boys before or after birth. So my family literally lives preterm, low birth weight, and infant mortality. And so we know that when you're born preterm or low birth weight, that means that you either you have not fully, part of your biology, your organs have not fully formed. So you actually have a health risk potentially. You're actually likely to have potential cognitive challenges, health challenges. And so we need to understand that. That means that we literally need to make sure that our children are screened for whatever. Because if they're born preterm or low birth weight, there are likely potentially challenges. And so we need to promote their health, mental health included, including mental health, but also we have to promote their wealth. Remember, America has literally, first of all, it never allowed wealth, but they've stripped the wealth of our community in so many ways, our financial wealth, our physical wealth, our emotional wealth. So we need to promote our wealth. And this is the thing. America is not really good at, mobilize. Like we're not good at sort of economic mobility. Like people think, oh my goodness, you're doing TikTok now. You got a whole Instagram. You about to be rich. No. Like literally, no. I know people think that yes, there's some people who are getting wealthy and from the YouTube. We have the exceptions. But as a population, we know for a fact that many Black people are not wealthy. If anything, they're literally having wealth sucked out of them because they work jobs that literally extract energy, extract their jobs, like early kid education. Y'all live in Charlotte. Y'all seen like housing prices around here. If you are making $24, no, not $24, $24,000, excuse me. If you're making $24,000, that is sort of the federal poverty level. And there's 4 of y'all, whether it's you, an adult, and 3 kids. That's your federal poverty level. Now you're making $24,000. What house you gonna live in? What apartment you gonna rent? Like that is the reality of it all, right? So we need to think about the wealth, and then we need to think about the educational excellence that children are having. Just because it says a 5-star does not mean it's a 5-star, y'all. And I can say this because I actually look at the rating systems in North Carolina and other places. So 5-star does not mean that's where you should be. So that means that we have to make sure that the kind of environment our children are in are promoting the best of who they are. That doesn't mean that, I'm not saying that they're not good if they're 5 stars, but what I'm saying is that we have to go deeper. To what extent are you talking about sort of African culture? To what extent are you talking about the brilliance of Black people, Black joy, Black resistance, in a child developmentally appropriate way, of course. But if we're not doing that, if they're not even talking about just Black people or Black children or all these things, if they're not asking, what is it you all do for your heritage? What language do you speak? Because I hate to tell us, y'all, we literally do have another language. A lot of us code switch. I was on a quick call the other day with somebody from the administration, and one of my colleagues was like going on and on about something, and she told the director, "I'm not code switching today," because because in the end of it, we have a language that we have allowed America to tell us is not good enough. It's the poor man's version of English. That is not true. Walt Wolfram at NC State, Julie Washington, who's now at UC Irvine, and a whole bunch of people, including at Harvard, understand that Black English has rules. It actually has rules that we just because I know how to speak it doesn't mean it's not a rule. So we need to make sure that we ensure that our language is preserved. And then finally, the last piece about preservation. This to me is probably the most critical part, is that we need to preserve the fact that we are part of the Pan-African world. Right, we have to literally remember that. Like I know, when people are like, "Oh my God, I'm not African American." I mean, I don't even know I've never been to Africa. And yes, I get it. Like I totally get it. As somebody who's born in the States here, even though I got a weird name, right? Like, yeah, I get it. But we have to recognize that our history does not start with enslavement period. Our history started before that, and we need to recognize that. You know what? Medicine started in Africa. Art started in Africa. They literally took all of that and sort of said, the Greeks found it and then brought it here. No, we need to understand that Blackness does not start with just the enslavement period. We are more than the narrative that they give us. That means that we have to know what is our culture? Who are we? What is our language? What is our family? So to me, the 3 Ps is more than just sort of like the 10 policies. The 10 policies are kind of an example. But if we're able to really protect our children, our families, and communities from harm, from trauma, then we are doing our job. If we're able to promote our health and our wealth, and yes, our economic wealth, but also our own freedom, our own mental wealth, and also ensure that our children are in educationally safe and affirming spaces that also preserve the best of who we are, that preserves our language, our institutions. BCDI Charlotte is an institution. How do we preserve that? How do we make sure that Dr. Govan and her team are not working for pennies on a dollar? Like for all those people in Charlotte who said, "Oh my goodness, Black Lives Matter, I commit millions of dollars," it should be in her coffers. So we need to learn, how do we preserve our institutions, including J.C. Smith, I know, right? How do we preserve these in ways that says we value who we are as a people? And that really is the 3 Ps. Right? And so remember, if nothing else, if I walk out of here, just think about, how am I protecting our children from harm, from discrimination, from material hardships? Like, we shouldn't have to worry about food, but there are many kids who are. Water, like think about it, water. There are many people who are. Healthcare, yeah. I mean, thankfully we have the Affordable Care Act that actually ensures that more Black people have actually access to insurance, but it doesn't mean that you have good health care. Like, we know that already, right? And then finally, how do we make sure we're promoting and then preserving the best of who we are? So to me, if nothing else, just walk away with the 3 Ps and just figure out, what am I doing to think about those things? What am I doing to protect children and families? What am I doing to promote the best, their wealth, their health, their educational access and excellence? And then what am I doing to preserve the best of who we are, our community, our institutions, our language, who we are, our power? Because part of racism, what it did is that it literally took away our voting power, which it still does. It literally took away a lot of our men through mass incarceration. It took away our wealth through basically not giving us access to housing, to financial drivers that creates wealth. I can go on and on down the stream. But I hope that no matter what you remember, the Black Child Agenda is about how do we make sure that we remember who we are and that we work collectively. That's why I call my sort of center at UNC coalition. In the end of it, we need to be a coalition of whether it's descendants of enslaved people, black people from Africa, from South America, from the Caribbeans. We need to remember that we are best when we're together collectively working to ensure humanity. All right. Now, before I'm gonna leave the stage in short, well, actually you can fast forward through. These are all pieces of how great this. So what I was doing in the report, we're doing the report, is to remind people there's a lot of data. Most of the data often says, "Oh, black people, black children, y'all are terrible." Oh, black, But I'm like, no, we are educated people. We are educated people. The problem with that is that America doesn't care. Because the data says that we are likely to be educated. We're likely to have somebody in the household with education, but they don't pay for it. So literally a white person with a high school degree makes more money than a black person with a BA degree or even higher. So we need to understand that education does not equal wealth. Education does not equal financial success. But however, I'm not saying don't get an education, but I'm saying it don't mean the same thing. Like I know a whole lot of white folks who have nothing but maybe a high school degree, and they probably making up more than me, and I got a whole PhD. I got a whole letter. So we need to understand that. So now when you look at the Black Child Agenda, there's 10 policies. You can click through and you can click through one more, please, Ms. P? Yes. So I'm not going to talk about all 10 of them. I think in the end of it, we're just giving you examples of what you can do, but I do want to focus on obviously number 7, addressing harsh and unfair discipline. But before I do want to make sure I call attention to that it's also important that children are in at least affirming spaces, right? So that I feel like in the end of it, you got to be in spaces that actually want you there. If you do not love black children, and I don't mean like just, oh, hug, you're kiss, you're cute. I mean like the Asa Hilliard version, the W.E. Du Bois version, like where you feel like it is your duty. It is your duty to make sure that they know who they are, that they know that they're valued, that they are deeply cared for, and that you will fight. You will fight. Like how our mamas used to fight? You will fight. With the take off your earrings and put the, yes. But you know what I mean. But you will fight on a deep, with whatever tools you have for their security, for their affirmation, and to know that they belong, that they should be well treated. So if nothing else, part of the agenda is hopefully to make sure that we remember that we at least have to have the educators that really, really love them, but also know who they are. Because if you don't know who you are, I don't really need you teaching my kids. Like, let's just be facts. Because there's nothing worse than somebody who think they know who you are, and then they teach your kids all kinds of stuff. You're like, well, no, light is not better. No, your hair's not that. So you want to make sure that we have educators that really understand what does it mean to be black in America? What does it mean to be black in this global society? So I think it's really important that we think about what does it mean to be African-centered. I remember I threw this word out to a bunch of black teachers maybe 3 years ago. And they were like, what's African-centered? What is that? Is that like made up? No, that literally is a thing. So how do we make sure that our educators are African-centered? That literally means that they understand what does it mean to be African? Like in the deepest of ways, like who are we as a people? What is the culture? What is the language, right? Because African-centered is not like this faraway thing. It means that we understand who we are before enslavement. We understand our contribution to global society. We actually get to narrate who we are on the deepest of levels that we often don't hear about. You got to come to a HBCU probably to get any kind of affirmation about who you are as a group of black people. So I feel like that's really important. So I think as you look at the agenda, look at some of the other policies, including universal pre-K, a sort of teacher workforce, all that kind of stuff. But now before I sort of leave the stage, I want to make sure I highlight the harsh suspension issue. We know this is a problem. This is one of those where it actually starts before 3-year-olds. The problem is that we don't have the data because most kids are in sort of community-based programs, and you don't have to give the data to the feds because they're not giving you money. We've seen data from New York. I've seen data from another state in the Midwest. And yes, toddlers are being asked to not come back. So there's things called soft expulsion. So that's where they will, call your mama or call your daddy, say, hey, come pick him up, come pick her up. They literally make it so difficult that you're like, I can't go to work if you keep calling me every other day. So there are things that are happening even before kids are 3. So we need to make sure that we're attending to how our children being treated before even 3. And then how are they treating in whatever other spaces where the federal government, because the thing is that most of the harsh punishment, the data is from the federally publicly funded programs. So if you're private, they're like, good luck with that one, right? So if you click the next one. So I'm going to just say, in terms of the policies, what we're basically saying is that let's make sure that we ban the use. It's almost like how we've had banned a box. We just have to ban it. There's no really rationale. First of all, there's no indication that black children are likely to misbehave compared to other kids. There literally is no data for that. What we do know is that many adults see black bodies in whatever form as threatening. No, we have another study that came out recently that also said that other people see black kids as older than they are. So if you're a 3-year-old and they think you're a 6-year-old, that's a problem. So literally, I'm gonna tell you what I did. When my kids started going to school, I wrote a letter to each of my kids' teachers, and I said, look, this is Aries over here. This is what he does, da, 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 da. And I did the same thing with my daughter, Lonnie, because they need to understand they are kids. They're literally 36-month-old kids. They're 40-month-old kids. They're 60-month-old kids. They're literally kids. And so we need to actually ban the use of any kind of sort of exclusionary policies and practices. Yes, I know there's a few kids who actually we need to work with them. But it doesn't mean that we throw them away. And we know that black children literally are likely to be thrown away. This is what this is. Suspension exposure is a nice way of saying, I'm throwing you out. That is literally what it is. And so how do we make sure that we ban those kind of practices? And if teachers need support, great. But I feel like in the end of it, our data indicates, for example, Walter Gilliam, who you all may have read about from Yale, and where he did a study where he basically put an eye tracker on teachers. And he had basically 4 kids. He had a black boy, a black girl, a white boy, a white girl playing at a table. And he had an eye tracker. He basically said, oh, just watch the video. And what they found out was teachers tend to focus on the black kids, like hyper-focus on them. And when they said, who's likely to have a problem? The black kids. Who's likely to cause problems? The black kids. The kids were literally playing. There was no misbehavior to be had. So it tells you that even as early as 3 and 4, there's a level of hypervigilance that happens with our 3 and 4-year-olds. That hypervigilance at 3 and 4 turns to something pretty deadly at 10, at 11, at 12. We need to understand the level of vigilance that's happening when literally kids are playing, being kids. Think about you when you were a kid. I mean, my goodness, I'm like, oh my goodness, thank God there was no camera, right? But the fact that when you're being a kid, you cannot be a kid, and you're gonna be seen as being violent, as being oppositional, and then you get thrown out. So we ask for the banning of all exclusionary policies, but I would even go deeper to say, how do we make sure that kids feel included? Because there's other kinds of exclusion happening. For example, I went to one of the highest quality programs, in one of the states, and I remember this little black boy was building this like complex Lego thing, like complex. And I remember watching, so he's on the floor building it, the teacher's over here, and I keep seeing him look at her, like almost for that affirmation, like, oh my God, you're doing great, Trayvon. That's the name I put. That's the name I put in the kid, what I call the kid. So you can see him kind of watching. She gets up, and she steps over this. And you see his face completely drops. Because he's like, I did this amazing thing. Like it was pretty sophisticated. And she walked over it. She didn't like walk around it, she walked over it. And to me, those things, you saw a lot of that happening with some of the group of black kids. And this is one of the highest quality programs in the state. And what it reminded me is that, yeah, she didn't throw him out. He wasn't misbehaving, but what she did is she basically made him invisible, made his talents invisible. So as we think about any issue of exclusion, harsh suspension, we should think about whether our children feel like they belong, like they're recognizing their talent, their skills, their contribution, and we know that they don't. And so I would say as we focus on the school to prison pipeline, we also make sure that what children are experiencing in the classroom, that they feel fully seen, that who they are is fully embraced by the educators. And so I asked you to think about how do we make sure that it's not just about keeping them in the classroom, because trust me, kids will tell you if a teacher don't like them. We know for a fact kids they're scientists. You know, one of my good friends says they are scientists. They literally know when you do not like them. They're like, yeah, she don't like me. He don't like, nope. Mm-mm. So they may actually say, you know what, I don't want to be here. And that's the message that we have to hear. If there's a group of kids who continue to maybe make their way out of a classroom or program, that should tell us something. We need to listen to them. They may not have the full words to say, she don't like me, but some of them actually say that. We have to listen to them, see their body language. We are people who communicate with many things more than our mouth. Remember, in the enslavement period, you couldn't talk, but you had a whole lot of language, like the eyes, like there's a lot of communication happens. So how do we make sure we capture those communication? So as I sort of leave you, we do have examples of some states that have banned it, like Connecticut has banned, suspension, expulsion, and we know some of those things work. But we also have to make sure that our children are still in affirming spaces. So as I kind of leave you, I just want to sort of read this portion. I don't mean to turn my back on you all. That the 10 policies outlined above are a step toward demonstrating that the lives and human rights of Black children and their communities, human rights. I think this is important that we really remember. Human rights, we don't need a policy. I don't need Congress. I don't need Congress for that. I don't need a bunch of people who literally do not care for my life, do not care for your life, my kid's life. No, human rights is what it is. And we need to fight for the human rights of our children, of our community, of our people. This is the fact of it all. And Black children deserve the right to have their culture preserved, their family preserved. We also deserve to be protected from just brutality just because of literally our skin color. Racism is called racism because it's literally based on a social engineer construct, basically because of how you look. It's nothing else. It ain't about where you live. It's literally how you look. It's the skin. That is what racism is. It's a socially engineered system of privilege and power and dehumanization. We have to remember that. We can worry about, somebody call me the N-word or whatever. I don't care if you call me the N-word. I just need you to not create a system that literally says, you are not worthy. That's literally what the system says. And we see the data that comes through. And I look at so many data all the way. So let's remember to make sure that we are protecting ourselves and then finally promoting. And I can't say it enough. While we focus on poverty, I want us to focus on wealth generation. Because if nothing else, if you got wealth, if there's a pandemic, if there's a hurricane, if there's some, tornado or flooding, whatever, when you have wealth, you can call on that at any moment in time. When you are poor, you're like, damn. When's the federal government going to come help me? When's the city going to come help me? Wealth makes sure that you have power and control and autonomy over your life. So when you think about the wealth part of our community in many ways, and wealth is actually generational. Yes. You can't get wealth just today, sadly. And I'm literally thinking, how do I make sure my kids have wealth of all kinds, economic wealth, mental wealth, they know their history and cultural wealth. Like that's what we need to focus on as well. So with that, with the last slide, I just want to sort of remind you all, what could you do in terms of the Black Child Agenda and any of the pieces is continue to figure out how do you mobilize, right? How do we work and ensure that we are engaging with BCDI, with Dr. Govind Hunt and Mr. Flamer and the whole entire BCDI community to make sure that we continue to center on Black children, families, and communities. We cannot get, again, I love all people. I love all people. You heard that before. I love all people. But we need to love ourselves. We need to literally love Blackness and what it means, both the pain, the trauma, but also the joy. We need to love all of who we are. And so I'm hoping that however you engage with the Black agenda, you talk about it. Even if you're a parent, go ask your school, well, how many Black teachers you have? How many of them do African-centered teaching? How much subscription do you have? If you go to, your health clinic, find out how many doctors do you have who's Black? How do you respond to people who may have, sort of different sort of challenges, health challenges? Do you try to make sure that it's African-centered, that it's connected and culturally responsive? So you can ask questions it's not about just policy. It's also about making sure that we hold our folks who are leaders accountable. So engage with us any other way. If there are things I can share after that, feel free. But again, I'm so grateful that Dr. Govind Hunt asked me, Yoma, just come on, drive down here. I have not left my house, really. And I used to travel literally every month or every week on February 2020. I stopped getting on a plane. So when she said, you gotta come down here, I was like, okay, because it was just an honor to be asked to just be here. And I don't take this for granted. And I just thank each and every one of you and those who I know couldn't be here for many reasons. But knowing that no matter what, I know that I stand on so many shoulders. And I know that my people run through me, run through us. And it's important that we continue to do the work, even when nobody's listening, even when nobody cares. It is our duty to make sure that we are protecting our kids and families. We're promoting their health and wealth and education, and we're preserving the best of who we are, no matter what. So with that, I'm going to leave the stage and say thank you.